Hey y'all, how are you doing? I'm great. Thank you so much for asking. It's me, Kim, and I am back for another video. Girl, my life is in shambles. I'm a mess, girl. Okay, first of all, I find it to be so difficult to sit down and record after an extended period of not recording. It's so hard for me and it's ridiculous. But I said, Kimberly, you said you were gonna sit down and record a video once your hair was not looking crazy. Okay? And I said that and I have to stick to my word because I'm going out of town tomorrow. I'm going to Las Vegas tomorrow morning. It's 10 p.m. right now. Has your girl packed? Has Kimberly Nicole packed a single thing in a suitcase? No, she hasn't. Why hasn't she packed a single thing? Why hasn't she? Because she's fucking stupid. Okay, I'm not dumb. I'm just a procrastinator and I make poor decisions. Yes, I did do something with my hair. Got my hair done. You know, I cut my hair a little bit too short after taking out those braids and it just wasn't looking good. You know, some of us have short hair faces. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. You have the head shape and the body type to do whatever you want to do. You really do. I just felt with no hair on my head, my head is gigantic. I actually think that that's one of the reasons why I'm good on camera. You know, a lot of actors, actresses in particular, have very big heads because it looks good on camera. Anyways, I have an enormous head, so with my big ass head and no hair, I was just giving you brown bowling ball. I was giving you Mr. Potato Head. I was giving you Titus Burress. And that's no shade to Titus because he's fucking fabulous. And he put Andy Cohen in his place. That's just not the aesthetic that I am going for. So I went and got my hair done. And I'm quite into it. You know, weave is tricky. Oh, you know, it's a little tricky. So, I loved it. The girl was so just nice and sweet. I just like to meet new people who are nice and sweet. I really liked her. But I promised that I would go into the story of For Harriet. Now that that's out of the way. I promised that I would talk about the beginning of For Harriet because, I mean, this was inspired by a couple of things. Multiple people have asked me to talk about it. And also there's some weird misinformation. I guess when you've been extremely online for as long as I have, there's just bound to be some misinformation that kind of floats around. And I just thought I would just, you know, lay it all out on the table. I'm not ashamed of anything. I think it's an interesting story. So I have always been obsessed with the internet. I mean, since I was, 7, my mom is extremely techie. She loves technology. She loves gadgets. She loves being an early adopter. And so she brought that into my home. And I am the way that I am, particularly with computers, because of my mother. She loves it. And so we were really early on the internet train. I mean, I've had internet in my home since I was 5. So, I mean, that's pretty early. And a few years after that, my mom, I don't know why she was taking an HTML class or a coding class, but she was at night. Maybe for her job, but not really. Because at that time, she was working at a telecommunication. Oh, maybe that's why she would take a coding class. But I guess she recognized that I loved the internet and loved computers. And so one day she brought home an HTML for Dummies book. And literally what she did was, check this out. You might like it. Like, I was 8, 9, probably. Not 10, 9. And so I went through it and taught myself how to make websites. And like from that point forward, obsessed with the internet. And early on, I wanted to be a magazine editor, like a fashion magazine editor. But then I got a little older and I kind of internalized these ideas like, you're smart, so you need to do something serious. Like, you need to have a serious job. And I loved politics. And so for a long time, I thought that I was going to be in politics. I've said this before. I thought I was going to be C.J. Craig from The West Wing. But always loved building websites, loved like editing. You know, I even made like a fake online magazine when I was a kid. This is so crazy, right? It's so crazy how you start off on a path. Like, kids know. Kids know. And I remember like the first cover star of my online magazine was Mariah Carey. Crazy. So I must have been, I don't know, 11, 12. I'm not going to say the name of it because that's the password that I use for everything. But yeah. And so back then I learned HTML, and then I was tinkering around with like GeoCities or Geocities. I don't know how you, or like Netscape Navigator. There's just all of these things that you could make websites in. And I always would make these little like publications for real. Like different sections and subheads and all of that. That was what I was fascinated by from a really young age. But media just did not seem like a viable career. There weren't a lot of models for being a Black woman and having a successful media career besides like Susan Taylor of Essence. And I love fashion, and I just thought, oh, this is just too frivolous. Like, who cares? So I went to college thinking that I was going to study government and economics, and then I saw that math for an econ degree, and I said, oh no, girl, we won't be making it through that math. Okay. But also I was exposed to, but really, I mean, it was a little bit of the econ math, but really I fell in love with the African American Studies department and being in classes with Black folks and being taught by Black folks. That was really transformative. Okay. So in college, I developed not only a love and appreciation for learning about Black people and being in community with Black people, but college is where I became a very committed Black feminist. And I was already political, but then when that interest in politics and making the world better for people merged with Black feminism, like that came together. But then in the back of my mind, I already also had a love of the internet and a love of digital media. So I had years before, even before I got to college, started blogs and just didn't stick with them, you know, fashion blogs and entertainment blogs, and just trying things out, and, didn't stick with it, and you're just dibbling and dabbling and stuff, trying to figure out what you like, what you don't like. But I still always loved media, and I read a lot of blogs. You remember when the blogosphere was popping? That was such a fun time. And I always had it in my mind, like, I should start a blog. So then when sophomore year, I started kind of like a blog network. That was moderately successful. But then I just lost, I still always had in my mind, like, I want to do something substantive. Like, I don't want to just be blogging about shoes and bags and who is sleeping with whom or whatever. Like, I want to make people's lives better with the content that I make, be serious, and like also like do something that like is prestigious, honestly, and is noteworthy. And so junior year of college, while I was basically failing out of school because I was depressed, we've gone over this, right? Watch the I Failed Out of Harvard video if you need to catch up. I came up with this idea for a Black women's website where Black women would come together to discuss our lives and talk to each other and like create a community. And my idea at that time was to create the kind of community online that I had found offline in my college life. but also to have it be intergenerational. Like, I always stressed the intergenerational part of For Harriet. And so I knew that I wanted to name it after an iconic Black woman. And Harriet Tubman was pretty much the most obvious person. And because I named it after Harriet Tubman, obviously it had to be on Juneteenth. I've been on Juneteenth. Look, I am from a place in this country. Sorry, my little... Okay, we're going to have to do some weave maintenance later. Okay. But because I grew up in a part of the country where Juneteenth has always been celebrated, I didn't just come to Juneteenth in the past few years. I'm welcome. I'm glad we can all celebrate Juneteenth together. But in the summer of 2010, I came up with the idea in the spring of 2010, and then oh God, this is taking me back. So I came up with this idea. I wrote out a mission statement of what I wanted this website to be. I wanted it to be about dialogue. I wanted it to be about Black women. I wanted it to be political in a progressive way. I wanted it to feature all kinds of Black women's voices, not just my voice. At that point, I didn't even consider myself to be a great writer. So I was like, I'm not even going to write for the site. I'm going to recruit other people to come in and share their thoughts. And so at that time, I reached out to, how did I have internet friends? Because I was already on Twitter at that time. Somehow I had internet. I think it was basically primarily through Twitter. And so I reached out to people with blogs and said, I have this idea. Here's the mission statement. Would you contribute a blog post? Can we repost what is on your blog so we can, I was aggregating all of this Black women's work. So this For Harriet would be the central location. And people said, yeah, crazily. And they didn't know me. How could they? I didn't have no resume. I was 21 years old. You know what I had? A vision. And one thing that I've always been really good at is articulating the vision. I'm a pretty good salesperson, despite the fact that I'm an extreme introvert and I don't like to be out like that. I am a pretty good salesperson because I know my way around words. And so people, they fucked with the vision, basically. And so they were like, yeah, sure, you can repost it. And I wasn't paying anything. I didn't have no money. And so they were like, yeah, sure, you can repost it. Yeah, I'll write something. Yeah, or whatever. And it's just so crazy that so many people bought into what was literally just an idea. Just an idea. So then For Harriet finally launched on Juneteenth. I believe is June 19th. I got the date wrong, and For Harriet launched on June 18th, 2010. And there was content, and I just had this idea in my mind. And I really believed at that time this could be something real. I really did. Why did I believe that? I don't know. There's no real reason for me to think that. But I just thought, this doesn't exist. You're looking around, so much of the content aimed at Black women was beauty focused and entertainment focused, like gossipy or fashion, right? So Fashion Bomb was around, that was the beginning of the beauty, the natural hair blogosphere and the beauty blogosphere and, all of, and the gossip and it was that. But I was like, I'm a serious ass woman. I want to talk about real stuff. And even Essence, I felt like, was too frivolous. And my other problem with Essence was they relied too heavily on male voices. I'm like, why are you creating content for women that centers men? I still find that to be really bizarre. I find it to be fucking weird. I'm a woman and I want to hear other women talk to me, not Steve fucking Harvey. And so I started this website with this very just intention of being liberatory, yeah. And so started For Harriet. I didn't have nothing. At that point, I'd already failed out of school. And I was like, okay, well, while I'm out of school, this is going to be my project. I'm going to build this up. I knew in my heart that it was going to be something like, I believe in myself. I was just thinking about this because, my mom still 9 years later is like, well, you can always go to grad school. You can always change course. And I'm like, girl, it's been a decade. You've got to let it go. Okay. But that stuff, hearing that stuff doesn't do anything to me. I'm like, you don't see the vision. I see the vision. I believe in myself 100%. There's never a time I don't have imposter syndrome. I don't have that. I guess maybe because I have been so ambitious and set such lofty goals all throughout my life and have been able to achieve them. And the ability to achieve goals was so foundational to my identity as a human. I've never had a problem disregarding the naysayers. It's just never been a thing for me. So my voice is what matters most to me since I was a kid, when I was 21, and now, right? Okay, you don't see it. Okay. So I spent all of my time. So obviously I got kicked out of school, or I was asked to take 2 semesters off. And so I had to go home, and I was working on For Harriet and working these just horrible little dead-end jobs. But in my mind, even while I was working these shitty little jobs and like not doing nothing, and all of my friends were preparing their senior year of college and preparing to go to grad school or get their good corporate jobs, in my mind, it was sad because I was missing out on this really important time. But I always believed this is going to be something. I just need to not give up. Always. I always thought that. So I worked on it. Slowly but surely, For Harriet gained traction and more Facebook followers, because Facebook was the primary social network and Twitter was there, but more Twitter followers, more Facebook followers, more people sharing the stuff. And it developed a reputation. And, it's so funny. I even remember Peebs, her name on Twitter is the PBG. She was like in the first, I want to say 25 likes for Harriet on Facebook. And now there's 500,000 likes for Harriet on Facebook. Like, I remember her. She's real, okay? She didn't come up with black girl magic for nothing. Like, she really about it. And so slowly grew, and then I had to figure out how to monetize it, because that's the primary concern. When my mom is trying to, insert these doubts, like, it's not gonna work, it's not gonna, she's really concerned, like, are you gonna be living here forever? Are you gonna get a real job? And I had to figure out, like, it's trial and error when it comes to monetizing things on the internet. What can you sell? What type of ads work? And all of that. And I was slowly beginning to figure that out. And over those 2 years, For Harriet grew and grew and grew. And like, it's so crazy. I distinctly remember I would be laying in my bed on the computer working on For Harriet, and my mom would come in and be like, what's that ever gonna do for you? Literally. I remember this so clearly. When I was working on For Harriet, she'd be like, that's not gonna do anything for you. And it's like, okay, girl. It's like so funny. I'm not gonna bring that up to her now, but she was wrong. Okay. It does feel good to be right. And so then I was out of school for 2 years. Then I went back to college. Now, the great thing about going back to school was I knew I wanted to do For Harriet full time, but I was not yet making enough money at For Harriet to not have no job. So going back to school actually provided like another year for me to be able to live with really minimal expenses and work and work and work and build this thing up. And it was growing a following. And I remember talking to one of my favorite professors at Harvard. Her name is Marcy Morgan, and she was just so supportive, and she was like, you can do this, and like, I see the potential and I see the vision, and like, don't quit. So when I was in school, For Harriet was continuing to grow. It was becoming more and more monetized, but it still wasn't enough to sustain myself. It was making some money, but not enough. So my mom was like, okay, you've graduated, you can't come live here, and you've got to get a real job. So I went and lived with my aunt right after I graduated from college, and I got a job at Farmers Insurance as a liability adjuster, and it's like not a bad job. It really wasn't. It paid a solidly middle class salary for a single person. I was living with my aunt. I didn't really have no bills. I mean, maybe I paid her $200 a month, like nothing. Single person, no children. At that point, I had a car, but it's a little raggedy car, so no car note. So I was able to save that money. And I worked at Farmers for 6 months until there was a point about 4 or 5 months in when I was like, oh, I'm making as much money in ad sales for Harriet as I am at this job. So it's time to quit this job, you know? And so that happened in like January of 2014. Yep, it did, because I got my diploma in 2013. And so I knew that I was going to be getting a tax refund. And I said, as soon as this refund comes, I'm out of here. Y'all ain't going to see me no more. I mean, I said this in my mind. And I did technically put in a 2 weeks notice. But yeah, and then the day my tax refund hit, typed up on the computer, it's time to go. And I didn't even finish out those 2 weeks. I remember it's maybe like a week into my 2 weeks notice, and I was like, why am I here? I mean, I don't have nothing against y'all, but why am I here? And I will also say that during that time when I was working at 8 hours during the day, I would come home and work for Harriet at night. I mean, I literally had 2 jobs. And so it was so stressful, and I was coming to work like so tired. Like I would be late to work in the morning, and then I would leave, and then I would just have to go and stay up, I don't know, 2 o'clock in the morning, trying to run the website and figure out how to monetize it. And like I love knowing about blogging trends, and I used to get on this blog called Pro Blogger. Oh my gosh, yeah. And they would like, how you make money, affiliate links, ad sales, sell books. And I would just come up with, trying to piece together a way to make a living doing this, because I was like, this is it. What's in the background? Oh, sorry, there's a lot of shit in this frame. But then it's so crazy, because as soon as I quit the job and was working up for Harriet full time, like the amount of money that I was making like really skyrocketed. And so I left that job in February, and by the end of the summer, I was like, oh, I need to hire somebody. So I hired an employee, and she was great. Michelle was so wonderful. And then, hired a couple more people to help, and like, more interns and all of that. And like for the next 4 years, for Harriet was rolling, the ball was rolling. And at one point we were publishing, 5 or 6 posts a day and making a good deal of money. It was a sustainable business. I had enough money. The blog was making enough money to like pay people salaries. Yeah, and me. So me and other people were getting salaries. But then something changed. So things changed in me, but also things changed in the way. So there got to a point when it was just so easy to make money with the popular blog, right? So there was one point it was just so easy. You put something up, you have a lot of followers on Facebook and Twitter, you put something up, it gets shared, and you make a lot of money in the ads. And that was so easy. And then it became less easy. It became more difficult because algorithms change, and people's the way that they consume media changes, and then you have to do a different kind of stuff to get shares, and it has to be timely, and it has to be ephemeral, and it has to be celebrity focused. And there's just a point where I was like, I don't like it. Not only did I not enjoy it, that kind of making that kind of content, but it was just less money coming in. And so, and also that was around the time when I was going through a really bad breakup, and it was just a lot going on. So, not only are we making less money, but we're having to make stuff to make money that I don't particularly care for. We're having to churn out, battery died, sorry. So we're having to churn out content, make stuff that I'm not 100% happy with. I'm getting older, so my tastes are changing. I realized that, yeah, and also by 2017, 2018, right? I mean, that's 7-8 years. So by that time, I'm 28, and I don't want to do the same stuff, right? Who wants to do the same stuff when they're 21 as they want to do when they're 28? But also, I realized another thing is I don't like being a manager. So I, as the editor-in-chief and also the person who oversaw the business stuff, that's a lot of paperwork. It's when you have employees, you have to make sure that they're doing what they need to do. And it's a lot of, and this is no offense to them, but being a manager does require a lot of hand-holding and a lot of pep talks and a lot of babysitting. I don't like to do that. And also, I'm not particularly great at it. My strength has always been being a big picture thinker. What's the vision? What do we need to get there? That's what I love to do, and I love the creative stuff. I did not like at all having to do the paper pushing stuff and the business stuff. And okay, you're going to take off for 2 weeks in August. Okay, let's figure out how we're going to get those 6 posts up. I didn't like it. It wasn't fun. And because the financial incentives were no longer there, it was easier for me to say, this isn't fun for me. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do this. I want to make different kinds of content. I want it to be not so tied to out getting clicks or clickbait or whatever. I want it to be more thoughtful, things that take longer. And also, like, I did not know anything about publishing. By that time, for Harriet was like a media company, a little media company with like 8 or 9 employees. I didn't know nothing about the media business. I had no idea. I was just winging it. And when I was younger, I was like, okay, well, I'll just figure it out. Okay. I had never had any internships. I did 1 semester of newspaper when I was in high school. Didn't work on the Crimson, which is the Harvard College newspaper. I had nothing. So there was just so many things that I didn't know, and I was having to rely on other people to walk me through ethics and best practices and just all kinds of stuff that you need to know about publishing and about media if you're going to run a successful media company. So I recognized that I needed to step back and figure out this shit. I couldn't just blindly run this thing that had a very large audience at that point. It was hundreds of thousands of people a day. Hundreds of thousands of views a day. Every day. Maybe even more than that. Maybe 1 million or 2 views across all of the sites every day. Yeah, I think so. A lot of people. Page views doesn't mean visitors, but just, it was big. Big-ish, right? Not at scale, as the startup people would say. And it's not what I wanted to do. It's just not my temperament is not made to be a manager. My disposition, the way that my brain works, it's just not a good fit. And we've seen so many instances of companies that just completely tank because the person in charge just cannot be a good leader of that company. And that's what was happening with For Harriet. It wasn't fun for me. I wasn't being able to be creative and, and it was just, no. And so I made the decision that I don't want to we're not going to publish anymore. And when was that? Like 18 months ago, maybe 18 months ago, beginning of 2018. Yeah, I don't want to do the daily publishing thing anymore. And that was hard. I mean, it's hard. And then you have all the extra pressures of these people are relying on me so that they can pay their student loans and all of that. I mean, it's just, I don't like that. Okay. The next time I build and bring people on, it's going to be a different kind of structure because I don't want to do that no more. And I have an assistant now, but if I have other employees, which I will because this is growing, it's got to be different because I have to make stuff. Like, that's my favorite thing in the world is making things. So I decided to take a step back. Thankfully, I wasn't broke, but I wasn't in the financial situation that I should have been in. I'll tell you that. I should have been much more comfortable. But I was so stupid and frivolous. Go back and watch the stupid things that I did in my 20s video on here. So I decided to take a step back and not publish anymore and figure out what I want For Harriet to be, what I want my career to be, what do I want to be known for. So I spent my 20s building up For Harriet, and I had wonderful experiences and spoke all across the country at so many colleges and met so many people. And then I started doing the events, the Black Girls Gather events, and that was so fun. That was really in the transition of okay, you don't want to be you don't want to be the head of a media company anymore. What do you want to do? I want to talk to Black women. So I started Black Girls Gather, and we had so many events across the country. But then I was like, well, I don't want to do that either. And so, my passion, but I still have this huge platform. I mean, For Harriet still has, I don't know, across all of the socials, 750,000 followers across all of them. And so I was like, okay, well, I don't want to just abandon this. I don't want, spend so much time building up this platform and building up this brand. And it is so crazy that I can go so many places, and despite not being the face of For Harriet, and I was intentionally not the face of For Harriet for so long, but, I would say, I run this website for Black women, it's called For Harriet, and in so many different places, people be like, oh my God, I know, and I cannot tell you how gratifying it is to be able to sit with any Black woman. I mean, this has happened with now I don't know I don't know about the Gen Zers, but people my age and older, if I say For Harriet, they'll recognize it. That means so much to me. It means something to me that I spent my 20s building a thing that has brand equity, that people recognize, that they say, oh, I remember when you published that thing and it helped me, or you published my first thing, and that, that means so, I'm just so grateful for that experience. But I also recognize that sometimes you got to transition. And thankfully, I was young enough and had enough flexibility to say, let's do something different. What do you want to do now, Kimberly? And I had already kind of started making videos maybe 4 years ago. And they did okay. And then increasingly on Facebook, they started to go more viral and more viral. And then I realized, or, you know, I love to keep up with the media trends and who's doing what. Oh, a part of that was the big pivot to video era. So in the media business, a couple of years ago, there was this big thing. Everybody's pivoting to video. Everybody, we're shutting down. And I was like, great. Everybody is getting out of the written word business just as I want to get out of the written word business. Great. Because I knew I wanted to make videos, you know. I knew that I was a good talker. People had even said to me before, like, why don't you do more on camera stuff? And I'm like, whatever. And also I was just getting tired of, for years, I've just dealt with these rumors of, for Harriet is owned by white people. White people own this. Like, who's behind this? Who's controlling you? You know, you're just a puppet. And I'm like, no, girl. No, I own it 100% outright. And I don't think people understand what a feat it was, particularly at the peak publishing era for Harriet, that I owned it 100% outright. Me, profitable digital media, a black feminist focused digital media company that was profitable. Me, 100%. So, I, you know, decided I wanted to pivot a little bit and wanted to write books, which I ain't wrote no book yet, but eventually we'll get to it, and wanted to make things, but like different kind of things. Started making videos. They started to get popular. And then I don't know what switched for me, maybe about 7 or 8 months ago, where I was like, oh no, Facebook is great. But this was even before Facebook had the ability to monetize videos, like before Facebook videos had ads for everybody. And I was like, but YouTube is where the money is. Like, you know, yes, you want to make stuff and it's fun to edit videos and talk and whatever, but like, if you want to build a business out of this and like be comfy, YouTube is where the money is. So I decided to focus all of my efforts on, and this is like 8 or 9 months ago, building up the YouTube channel and like focusing on that and like what do the algorithms prefer and how can I match what I like to do with what the algorithms prefer, and setting up the Patreon. Like, a lot of these creators are using Patreon because I recognize I had to create the Patreon because the stuff that I'm really into at that point was just not making a lot of money, you know? I have found now how to do things, make videos that are what I love to do, girl. I love to get into the theory weeds, but also match it with what the algorithms like. And so for the past few months, I've had a lot of numbers success on YouTube without, and that's the best part, without having to sacrifice my views or my interests or the core mission of For Harriet, which is to speak with a clear voice toward Black women, to Black women. Now, it's not always, the stuff that I talk about is not just like exclusively focused on Black women and Black womanhood, but my analysis is always coming from a Black feminist perspective. Overwhelmingly, the stuff that I talk about is Black women stuff. The media that I feature, there's gonna be a Black woman in the lead or the second lead. Like, I recognize that I could fulfill a niche and talking about this stuff in a way that nobody else is talking about it, doing the kind of deep dives that nobody else is doing. And I love, like, what really gets me going, what motivates me is thinking that I might have an opportunity to do something that has not been done. And I really think that with these videos and the kind of content that For Harriet is making now, you know, what really bumped me out during the time when we were making so much money is it was just like, we're making all this stuff and like, who cares? You know, who cares about this stuff? Like, everybody, we're making the same stuff everybody's making. We're covering the exact same news stories everybody is covering just to get a few clicks. What a waste. I like the fact that I'm doing something. I don't think anybody else can do this. I'm me. You know, people sometimes ask me about, oh, what do you do when somebody steals your idea? I don't care if you steal this idea. You're not going to be me, you know? And having this space to be 100% me and build what I think is a foundation for my next decade. That is so fun for me. It's so exhilarating, and I feel so thankful every day that I got a chance to do that thing in my 20s, and in my 30s I'm gonna do other stuff and have just as much fun and experience a different side. I love media. I love images. I love media. I think it is so important. I don't want to get out of the media creation business. I just want to do it a different way. And so that's how we are where we are now with For Harriet. And I want to make shows, and I want the Patreon to grow, and I want the viewership to grow, and I want to do different kinds of shows. And eventually it's not just going to be, hopefully, not just going to be me all the time. I want to discover talent. I don't want to just put myself on. I want to create something. And now that I know what my deficits are in running a company and being the head of a company, as I am rebuilding, I know, girl, you can't do that. You need to hire somebody else to do that, or you need to put somebody else in charge of that. I know that now, right? And I had to make those mistakes and be a bad boss at time to recognize, oh, okay, it's your responsibility to make this a great workplace. Like, it's on you, girl. But I am so excited by the possibilities. I'm excited in the way that the channel is growing. I'm excited in the kind of feedback that For Harriet is getting. I'm excited about all the ideas that I have in my mind about the different kind of content that I can make. And I love watching YouTube videos now. I love it. There's just so much. The opportunity is endless. But also I recognize that you also can't put all your eggs in one basket. And so I'm thinking of stuff beyond YouTube, you know, beyond making videos. I won't say just making videos because I think it's cool and important. But like, I love that I'm in a space now to not worry about money. Thank God. But also to like dream. You know, and like think of the future and like how cool it's gonna be. That's where I am now. So that is the story of For Harriet. I don't like to share. People always ask, what's your 5-year plan? Why would I share that with you? I don't know you. No, I have no desire to share my 5-year plan with you. But I definitely think about it a lot, and I'm excited. Thank you guys so much for being patrons. I appreciate you. It's been a minute since I made some like premium videos for patrons. But I will see you guys next time. And I need to record a video when I'm in Las Vegas. I really, really need to. So pray on it. Okay, bye guys.